The text message lit up my phone screen at 10:17 p.m., a venomous little beacon in the darkness of my living room. I'd just gotten my son, Matteo, settled after picking him up from his mother's house, his silence in the car heavier than any screaming match could ever be. The message was from my ex-wife, Jimena. It read, "Since Matteo has zero respect for the family that provides for him, he clearly doesn't deserve the future we planned. I'm withdrawing the entire college fund tomorrow to buy Gale the Ford F-150 he deserves. A real man needs a real truck. Consider it Leo's contribution to a family he wants no part of." My blood ran cold. A white-hot rage, pure and absolute, surged through me. $80,000. A decade of my life, of extra shifts, of missed weekends, of saying no to myself so I could say yes to my son's future, all about to be vaporized for a shiny new truck for her arrogant new husband. I squeezed my phone, the plastic creaking under the pressure. I wanted to smash it. I wanted to call her and unleash a torrent of fury. But then, something shifted. The boiling rage cooled into something harder, colder. A slow, grim smile spread across my face. She had no idea. After 8 years of her impulsiveness, her drama, her financial recklessness, she had finally, beautifully, walked straight into the trap I had set the day our marriage ended. You see, our divorce 8 years ago was messy, mostly because of money. Jimena has always treated finances like a magic hat, endlessly pulling out rabbits without ever wondering how they got there. I knew, even then, that any money left within her reach would vanish. So, I built a fortress. Our son's future wasn't going to be a casualty of her whims. I spent years building that college fund. I'm a construction engineer, Dario, and I took every side project I could get my hands on. I remember one summer, I took a 3-month contract out of state, supervising a bridge reinforcement. I lived in a dingy motel that smelled of stale cigarettes and regret, eating instant noodles 5 nights a week. Every dollar I saved went straight into that fund. I'd look at the growing balance and picture Matteo on a university campus, free from the burden of student loans, and it was all worth it. The $80,000 wasn't just sitting in a savings account. On the advice of my sister, I'd had my lawyer structure it as an irrevocable trust. I am the sole trustee. Jimena's name is on the statements, a deliberate, calculated move. It allowed her to see the balance, to feel a sense of involvement, giving her the illusion of control. But it was just that, an illusion. She could look at the money, she could dream about the money, but she had absolutely zero authority to touch it. Only I had the final say. It was a failsafe, a financial ghost I'd created to protect our son from his own mother. This whole mess started about a year ago when Jimena married Gale. Gale sells luxury cars and carries himself with the smug assurance of a man who thinks he's the main character in everyone else's story. He decided he was going to be the alpha male in Matteo's life, despite me being very much present. At first, it was just annoying little power plays. I'd show up to one of Matteo's soccer games, and Gale would be on the sidelines, shouting instructions like he was a Premier League coach. "Use the outside of your foot, Matteo. Are you even listening?" he'd bellow, making my son flinch with embarrassment. When I quietly asked him to tone it down, he just smirked. "I'm just teaching the kid how to be tough, Dario. You're too soft on him." Jimena, of course, would just nod along. "He's right, you know." It got worse. On my weekends with Matteo, Gale would call to check in, which was really just an excuse to enforce his ridiculous rules from afar. "Make sure Matteo is in bed by 9, he'd instruct, as if my 16-year-old son was a toddler. "And no video games until his homework is perfect." Each comment was a small jab, a territorial pissing contest I refused to engage in for Matteo's sake. But I could see the toll it was taking on my son. His shoulders were always a little tighter after a week at his mom's place. The breaking point came last Saturday. It was so stupid, so utterly pathetic, that it was almost comical. The chore for the day was mowing the lawn. I taught Matteo how to do it years ago. He was meticulous, careful. But for Gail, it wasn't enough. I wasn't there, but Matteo recounted the whole humiliating episode to me later, his voice flat with exhaustion. Gail had come outside with a tape measure. A tape measure. He knelt on the grass, squinting. "Look at this, Matteo," he'd said, his voice dripping with disappointment. "This line is off by at least 5 degrees. The whole pattern is sloppy. Do it again. And this time, do it with precision." Matteo, who had spent an hour in the sun, just sighed. "It's just grass, Gail." "That," Gail snapped, "is the attitude of a loser. Didn't your father teach you anything about excellence? You know what? You're grounded for a week. No phone, no friends." That was it. 16 years of pent-up frustration, of being a pawn in his mother's new life, finally boiled over. Matteo looked him dead in the eye. His voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp and clear. "You can't ground me," he said. "You're not my dad." Instead of de-escalating, Jimena, who had been watching from the porch, rushed to her new husband's defense like a lioness protecting a cub. She stormed over to Matteo, her face twisted in fury. "How dare you be so disrespectful," she shrieked, snatching his phone from his hand. "Maybe if you respected the man of this house, he wouldn't have to be so hard on you. You're an ungrateful brat." The fight ended with Matteo, cornered and defeated, calling me from the landline, his voice cracking. "Dad, can you please come get me?" When I picked him up, he slumped into the passenger seat, the weight of the world on his shoulders. We drove in silence for a while. I didn't push him to talk. I just reached over and put my hand on his shoulder, giving it a firm squeeze. He leaned his head against the window, and I saw his own shoulders relax just a little. He was safe. That's all that mattered. Later that night, after Matteo was asleep, the infamous text arrived. And after the initial rage passed, I knew exactly what I had to do. Or rather, what I had not to do. I called my sister, Miria. She's a forensic accountant, sharp as a tack and completely unsentimental. I read her the text. There was a pause on the other end, then a low whistle. "Wow," she said, her voice devoid of surprise. "So, the day has finally come. I told you 8 years ago this would happen, didn't I?" "You did," I admitted. "She's going to try and drain it tomorrow. What do I do?" "You do nothing," Miria said, her voice firm. "Absolutely nothing. Don't reply to her text. Don't call her. Don't warn her. You built the fortress, Dario. Now let her charge the walls. Let her believe she's won. The humiliation will be so much sweeter when she realizes she's been rattling a locked gate." Her cold logic was exactly what I needed. I deleted the text message thread. I put my phone on silent. I went to bed, and for the first time in a long time, I slept soundly, dreaming of a smug, self-satisfied woman walking blindly off a cliff she'd dug for herself. The next day was one of the longest of my life. I went to work, sat in meetings, and reviewed blueprints, all while a cold, electric anticipation hummed just beneath my skin. I kept my phone on the table, face up. Every buzz made my heart leap. I was a hunter in a blind, waiting for the prey to step into the clearing. The call came at 2:15 p.m. It was an unknown number with a local area code. I answered on the first ring. "Am I speaking with Mr. Dario?" a professional, calm voice asked. "This is he." "Mr. Dario, my name is Mr. Alvaro from the bank's fraud prevention department. We're calling regarding a wire transfer request made on the trust account ending in 4822. The request is for $80,000, to be transferred to a local Ford dealership. As you are the sole trustee on this account, We require your verbal approval to proceed. I took a deep breath, letting the moment hang in the air. This was it. The culmination of 8 years of foresight. Mr. Alvaro, I said, my voice steady and clear. I do not approve that transfer. I want you to emphatically deny that transaction. Furthermore, I want you to flag this account for any and all future withdrawal attempts made by my ex-wife, Ms. Jimena. She is not to be given any information other than that the transfer has been denied. There was a sound of typing on the other end. Understood, Mr. Dario. The transfer is denied, and the account has been secured as per your instructions. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, Mr. Alvaro, I said, a feeling of grim satisfaction washing over me. You've been a great help. I waited another hour. I let them sit there. I pictured it perfectly, Jimena and Gail in the dealership's finance office, the smell of new cars and cheap coffee in the air. They'd be signing the last of the paperwork, Gail puffing out his chest, Jimena looking at him with adoration, both of them high on their petty victory. I let the scene play out in my head until I couldn't stand it anymore. Then, I dialed Jimena's number. She answered on the third ring, her voice sharp and annoyed. I could hear the tinny sound of dealership announcements in the background. What do you want? She snapped. Just calling to see how the truck shopping is going, I said, my voice calm, almost conversational. Did you guys pick a color yet? There was a beat of confused silence. We're just signing the papers now, she said, her voice dripping with smugness. No thanks to you. That's strange, I replied, and I let the ice seep into my tone. Because I just got off the phone with the bank. The transfer for Mateo's college fund has been permanently blocked. You see, Jimena, you forgot the fine print from our divorce agreement. That's a trust account. You can look at the money, but you can't touch it. I am the trustee, and I have the final say. The silence on the other end was deafening. It was so complete, I could practically hear the blood draining from her face. I pictured her standing there, phone pressed to her ear, in front of her furious new husband and a bewildered car salesman. Utterly, completely, and publicly humiliated. I let the silence stretch for a few more seconds before delivering the final blow. You don't get to destroy our son's future to soothe your new husband's fragile ego, I said, my voice low and cold. It's over. I hung up. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. A few hours after my call, my phone rang. It was Jimena's mother, Alma. I let it go to voicemail. The message she left was a masterpiece of hysterical, manipulative nonsense. She was sobbing, accusing me of ruining her daughter's life, of being cruel and vindictive, all because of a silly truck. I listened to it, then called my sister. Alma just called, I told Neria. Said I was destroying the family. Neria laughed, a sharp, barking sound. Good. Let her. You should have heard from a mutual friend of ours. Apparently, Gail threw a massive tantrum right in the middle of the dealership. Started screaming at Jimena that she was useless and pathetic. They had to be asked to leave. The news didn't bring me joy, just a grim sense of finality. As Neria had predicted, Gail, stripped of his prize and faced with the reality that Jimena held no real financial power, left her within a month. The man who so desperately needed to be the alpha couldn't handle the public emasculation. The foundation of their relationship, built on a shared contempt for me, crumbled the second they couldn't use my son's future to prop it up. It was a house of cards in a hurricane. The day after Gail left, I filed an emergency motion with the court for full custody of Mateo. I walked into that courtroom with a single piece of evidence, a printout of Jimena's text message. I presented it to the judge as proof of emotional abuse and a deliberate attempt to sabotage our child's future for her own selfish ends. The judge read it, looked at Jimena's pale, defeated face, and didn't even need to deliberate. I won. Easily. Now, Mateo lives with me full-time. His $80,000 college fund is secure, and our bond, forged in the fire of his mother's betrayal, is stronger than ever. Jimena is alone, in debt from her second divorce, and has nothing. She tried to punish our son, but in the end, she only punished herself. Now she's trying to get back in Mateo's life, sending him texts about how she made a terrible mistake. I have no intention of letting that happen, but sometimes, late at night, I wonder, am I the asshole for completely cutting her out of our son's life?